Hi, boys and girls. It is Mrs. Marburger again over at Lorraine. I'm back with another summary video, and this video is going to talk a little bit about how you should organize your thinking when you are starting your summary. So in the other video, the first video that I made, I showed you this writing a summary chart where it showed some different strategies for summarizing. And I talked about how when I write a summary, I typically use the idea of characters, setting, conflict, and resolution, and include just a few important events that might be in the middle. So that is what I was thinking about when I did my summary. And I'm going to show you my summary. I decided to summarize the story called Boxes for Katja. And I think most of us read and listened to this story earlier in the year. But even if you didn't, that's okay because you are going to hear my summary and you're going to learn all about the story. So when I wrote my summary, I broke it into 3 parts. I broke it into the beginning, the middle, and the end. And for me, it was easier in my mind to organize my information that way. So here I have an example of one way that you could organize your thinking so that you're just worrying about one chunk of the summary at a time. It's usually easier if you take an assignment such as writing a summary, and if you just take one piece at a time, it's not quite as overwhelming. So I started off in box 1 with the beginning of the story. And I have written, Katja was a young girl in a Dutch town called Ulst. Rosie was a young girl living in America. After the war, the people of Ulst had very limited food and supplies. So you're going to notice in box 1, I have my characters, Katja and Rosie. They were the 2 main characters in my story. I also included the setting. The setting for Katja was a town called Ulst in Holland. And Rosie was in America. But the story is from Katja's point of view, and she is living in Ulst. So that's where the story is really taking place. I also have a problem listed. Do you see the problem in box 1? You should have noticed that I wrote that the people of Ulst had very limited food and supplies. That is a problem. And this is a problem that runs throughout the whole entire story. So then I moved on to box 2, and box 2 is the middle of the story. So I had to be very careful with my thinking and what words I chose, because I know in a summary, you're only using the big parts of the story. I can't tell too many details. So I thought and thought and thought about what the big ideas were in the middle. So this is what I came up with. Rosie began sending Katja boxes. These boxes were filled with much needed food and supplies. Katja always shared everything she received from Rosie. So if you read the story, you remember how Rosie sent box after box after box filled with sugar and socks and soap and chocolate, right? I did not put all those details into my summary because they are details, and those little details are not needed when you're telling a summary. You need just the big parts of the story, and that's what I tried to do. Instead of using all those little details, I simply said that Rosie sent Katja boxes. The boxes were filled with food and supplies, right? And then I also thought it was important to talk about how Katja always shared everything that she received. So then that's what I wrote for the middle. The last thing I had to do was in box 3, I had to tell the end of the story. So this is what I came up with. Katja was so grateful for Rosie's generosity. She wanted to do something kind for her in return. she sent a very special box to Rosie filled with tulip bulbs to say thank you. And so that was what happened at the end of the story. Katya was so extremely grateful and thankful for Rosie's supplies, but she really wanted to do something in return. And they didn't have much, but one thing they do have in Holland are tulips and tulip bulbs. And so that was what Katya sent to Rosie in the end as a thank you. So that was my summary for Boxes for Katya. I feel like I have the most important parts included: the characters, the setting, the problem, what happened a little bit in the middle, and then the solution at the end, or how the story ended. So that is something that you need to think about next time you are writing a summary. How can you chunk it apart, break it apart, so that it's more manageable and not so overwhelming? And this might be a strategy that you want to use, breaking it into beginning, middle, and end, box 1, 2, and 3. Hopefully this is helpful next time you write a summary. Thanks for listening.